Give a strong call aloud to Yahweh. By Shema Mashat wa Malak Yahushai. You are coming back with these little quick scripts through the spirit. Um, as pertaining to the title, you feel me, is real life gonna go into uh the positive, pretty much a positive spin on the negative connotation that the word submission has, whether it's man or woman. Men feel like it's, weak to have to submit or to be in obedience to an higher authority, and same likewise as the woman, right? Submission doesn't mean, you just don't have a voice, you're just silent. It doesn't mean oppression. It doesn't mean in a level of as a person inferiority, a less of a person. Those are the negative connotation that the word submission has. People hear submission, they think of, oh, I'm not a dog or I'm not a slave or things of that nature. When the Lord shows examples of mighty, mighty men, right? Mighty women, you know, uh, submitting and things of that nature. Submission really equates to humility, being humble, right? But I want to get into these precepts real quick before I run out of time. This is the book of Ephesians, chapter 5 and verse 21. It says, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear, Salat, in the fear of the Most High. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Hamashiach is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Right? So it says, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of the Most High. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Hamashiach is the head of the church. Right? So we're also, as men, in subjection and in submission to a higher authority, whether it's, another man in the sense of that has charge over us, right? And another precept, I'm gonna grasp, roughly paraphrasing, says those who watch over your souls, right? You may have a leader, you may have even in your workplace, your supervisor, things of that nature, right? It says, therefore, as the church is subject unto Mashiach, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything, right? And then it goes on to say, husbands, love your wives, even as Mashiach also loved the church and gave himself for it, right? That's the mindset that a man and a woman should have, right? A man, in his aspect of submitting himself to a wife, right? And a lot of things, we have to be that provider, right? We actually have to, cater in a sense, right, to their spirits, right, to their feelings, their emotions, obviously when it's, reasonable, of course, but we have to take an account of that, and we have to bring forth reassurance and things of that nature. But likewise with the wives, right, subject and in submission to their husbands, right, and whatever is necessary, I'll say that, right? But it goes in reference to show how the church is to submit to Yahweh Shai, right? When there's no discrepancies with that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about how, you're supposed to be subject and submit unto, the Most High and Yahweh Shai, right? But by what? By taking heed to his words, his law, statutes, commandments, obeying them, right? Which is another word, right, that has a negative connotation to it. Let me get 1 Peter chapter 3. Right, this is the book of 1 Peter, chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, likewise, ye wives, being subject to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives. Right? So it says, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives. Right? So alone, being a submitting, woman of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, right, you can actually win over your husband, right, just with the spirit you have alone of submission. You know how much power that is, right? And I believe when you read into 2 Esdras, the 4th chapter, right, over wine, king, and the women, women took that top role as far as influence and the most powerful thing, right? So women actually have a very strong role when it comes into this truth in one of the forms, I should say, of submission, right? You can literally, as it says in 2 Esdras, the 4th chapter, right, she could backhand the king or smack the king with her left hand. If she laugh, he gonna laugh with her. If she looks upset, he's gonna try to comfort, figure out what's wrong, right? That's the type of influence that a woman has. But on the right hand side, that type of influence can bring a husband, right, children, the whole family into the truth, right, into serving the Most High God, right, in sincerity, right? So that's one alone as far as that mighty power that submission actually has, right? It says, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, whose adorning let it not be that outward adorning, right? Because anybody can be pretty, anybody can be comely, anybody can smell good, right? This, you know, they got a lot of different accessories to kind of help with that now, you know, nowadays, right? It says the plaiting of the hair and of wearing gold or putting on of apparel, right? People wear fake gold all the time, right? It's not about the outwardly. It says, but let it be the hidden man of the heart in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price, right? So that makes it extremely plain to show that the spirit that's within you, right? It said a meek, humble, right? And that's why I said you can't have one without the other, right? That meekness come with humility. That humility also coupled together is gonna be more, I say, subject to a submissive spirit versus a damn a bull dyke spirit, right? It says verse 6. It says, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement, right? And he used that word obeyed, right? It doesn't equate to, all right, oh, I'm not a dog, I'm not this, that, and the third. Now, of course, you know, if it's said matter, you know, intentions matter, but all in all, right, that word is not to have a negative connotation to it, right? Sarah is a very fire, you know, foremother that a lot of sisters do lessons about. A lot of sisters, you know, seek to walk after. A lot of sisters name themselves after, right? I don't know any sisters that, you know, name themselves after, you know, Jezebel, right? Never heard any brother name himself after, you know, a wicked man. I never heard a brother call himself Nabal, right? Or name himself Judas Iscariot, verbatim, right? So, just to show, you know, being in like manner or wanting to be in the same steps as your forefathers and foremothers, you got to know what came with them, right? What came with that name? What came with the name of Sarah was, she was obedient to Abraham. She was submissive unto Abraham, right? You can't have somebody whose name is, I don't know, let's say Mercy in the Hebrew. His name was Mercy in the Hebrew. And then, you know, but he's the main, you know, has zero of it. You have no mercy on nobody, don't care. You know, you name somebody's, you know, faith in the Hebrew, and yeah, he's always wavering and, you know, never concrete on something, right? In times past, their name actually meant something, right? Let me get another precept real quick, right? Hebrews chapter 13, right? So going into submission, it doesn't mean that you're weak or inferior, or it doesn't mean that you're in an oppressive state. You know, you're meant to always be oppressed and just under, you know, under somebody or under things on the negative side. Not at all, right? It's actually a mighty thing or a mighty lot to be submissive, right? Of course, there's discernment, right? You're not gonna be submissive to a damn what's it called? Overly wicked. Like, for example, if somebody go tell you, oh, go denounce the name of the Lord, or go eat this, shrimp, crab, lobster, and do this, that, and the third. Oh, well, yeah, it, it said I gotta submit. Brother was bringing out precepts, so I gotta submit. So he say, I gotta eat X, Y. Don't be a fool, right? Don't be a fool. If it's in wisdom, obviously, right, and it's not wicked, right? That's a mighty trait and a mighty lot to have, because even as we read in 1 Peter the 3rd chapter, there can be an ability to win them over by that, right? And that's a mighty thing as a woman alone to be able to do that, right? And likewise with a man leading by example and making himself subject, right? Making himself lesser than to win the most. That's what Paul did, heavy, right? And you see how his ministry and his I won't say popularity, but that's why his name, right, has such a good rep on it, right? This is Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 17. It says, obey them that have rule over you and submit yourselves. So we use both words, right? Submission and obedience, right? Not to be on the negative side, but it's going to show you why. It says, obey them that have the rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, right? Because all in all, when it's on the right-hand side, those same people that you're under and subject to and things of that nature, or has the authority over you, whether it's a leader, whether it's a supervisor, whether it's a husband, whatever it may, an elder, right? An elder sister, a more aged sister, a more aged man, right? These people don't have to necessarily even be related to you. However, it says, for they watch for your souls. The Lord may have put them in a lot or in a position to watch for your soul, right? To watch over your spirit. Make sure that you don't slip. Make sure you don't fall. Give you sound wisdom in which you would want to do something, but hey, do nothing without counsel. You receive it, and now you're flourishing, right? Now you avoided something that any other time you wouldn't have avoided, right? Salat. It says, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you, right? And that's plain. Let me get this other. Actually, I'm already here. Let me go to James chapter 4 and verse 6. But he giveth more grace, wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble, right? Because it said the meek shall inherit the earth. One that's moving in a submissive and more under the radar type of spirit, right? Hey, it says the meek shall inherit the earth. They have more of a chance than someone that's just proud, but yet he's over a large sum of people, but he's just overly proud and just wicked, right? It's not going to go well in his favor. It says, verse 7, submit yourselves therefore to the Most High, resist the devil and he will flee from you, right? So he says, draw nigh to the Most High. That part of submission, right? Because you're drawing yourself to the Most High, right? But you have to submit unto going up the chain. You have to submit to Yahushua, right? You submit to Yahushua, you submit to the Most High God. But if the Most High God sets someone over you on an earthly level, right? Or Yahushua, or I'll say that man that's reverencing Yahushua and trying to steer you a certain, direction on the right-hand side, why not? Why buck up? Right? Why not take the humble route? Like, hey, this person has more years of wisdom, more years of understanding, more years of life, experience, etc. Right? Why not take it? Right? Want to be rebellious as a dang men and women of old were. Right? Off the drop of a dime, just want to, buck up for any means necessary. Actually, I was in 1 Peter. Let me go back to 1 Peter real quick. Get chapter 5. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 5. It says, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Because like I said, you got people that's older and more experienced that can help you go a long way. It doesn't mean that, oh, you're just nothing. Right? It doesn't mean that, oh, they're going to keep you down to XYZ. No, their goal, having watch over your souls, is to help build you up. right? So you submitting, in a sense, is going to unlock something in your spirit to where you might actually get above, higher than what you would have on your own. Why? Because you took that route to be humble, right? To submit, to be in obedience, to be as a student, and to learn more and to grow. That's the power that submission can unlock, right? That's a hidden gem that submitting and being in obedience actually unlocks in the longer run. You might not see it at the time, you might be murmuring in the back of your head, which you shouldn't, but you might. And then later on, it's like, dang, that made a lot of sense. I know a lot of people had that before. Oh, why he doing it like that? I don't even know why she rap it like that. She could have just rapped it this way. It would have been a little bit better. Or how come he didn't just do this? And that little backdoor, and then next thing you know, probably about 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, the results come in, and it's like, dang, that's why he did it. That makes a lot of sense. Wow. And now you just learned something new. But before, you was just scoffing, shaking your head, scratching your noggin. Right? Right, so there's actually strong power, lessons, gems that could be had when you take the role of submission. It says, all of you be subject one to another and be clothed with humility, right? Because that's what I said prior, right? That word obedience, right? Subjection, submission, humility, they're all kind of in that same spectrum together, right? It says, for God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble, right? So just to make it very plain, Salakia, just to make it very plain, right? It may come from different angles. You might hear a different adjective for it, but they all go back to the same thing, right? Being humble, being meek, right? Lowly, and things of that nature. When you move in that type of spirit, it it produces greater fruit. It produces very real greater fruit. Let me get take this precept real quick. Let me get First Peter. Not First Peter, Salakia. Get Philippians. We'll get Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. Yeah. It says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each other esteem others better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Hamashiach Yahushai, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Right? And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Right? Now, who charged Yahushai to say, hey, look, you got to go up here and you got to, give your life for the children of Israel? The Most High God set that up. And he was obedient to that. He had to humble himself for that. Right? So if obedience and humility, right, and the Most High, and Yahushai being subject to the Most High God, all different qualities and aspects of, submission that he had for the Most High, is that not being Christ-like? Is not being like Yahushai? Right? People always say, oh, I want to walk like Yahushai, I want to this, that, and the third. This came with it. Right? He was in obedience. Right? He was even in Salat. Let me get this real quick. Salat. Nah, I might want the account in Matthew. See the Matthew or Luke I want. I'm gonna check both real quick. Yeah, I might get the one in Matthew. Bear with me real quick. I'm gonna get Matthew chapter 17 and verse 24. I'm gonna get that verse. I was looking for something else, but I'm gonna grab this one. It says, "And when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, Doeth not your master pay tribute? He said, Yes. And when he was coming to the house, Yahushua prevented him, saying, What thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Peter said unto him, Of strangers. Yahushua said unto him, Then are the children free. Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea and cast an hook, and take up the fish that first cometh, and when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and thee." Right? So Yahushua and Peter and things of that nature, they're talking about the tribute. Now Yahushua was like, yo, hey, go to the sea, the fish, hey, grab that money out of the fish's mouth, right? And hey, give it as tribute, right? So even on a physical sense, Yahushua was under, Rome. He didn't do nothing above and beyond. He was literally blameless. They had to make up things to come up with him. He was blameless, right? He even followed by the book of, quote unquote authority, when it came to Rome and things of that nature. So that's the route that he took. He didn't even buck up. When he was on the cross, he could have caused fire to come down just like that. There's a lot of things that he was able to do, but he didn't for the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So if the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushai is for man, women to move in the same spirit, right? That's a hidden gem right there, right? Submission, humility, and obedience has a lot of power in them alone, right? The negative connotation is for it to be about oppression and all this other stuff. That has to be gone and out the way, out the book, right? Because you can't see that in here through the spirit. You see nothing but great things when the Lord speaks of those that obey his voice, right? Those that keep the charge of his words, those that you literally can't, Salat, you literally can't, you literally can't speak on, let's go back. Even in the wilderness, you couldn't speak a jot, a tittle, a word out your mouth against Moses, right? You couldn't speak on him. If you did, there was gonna be judgment. That's what happened to Miriam, right? Miriam had it firsthand because she didn't move in that same spirit of humility, right? Submission, etc. Right? So it's a lot that comes with it. So Lord willing, because I gotta go back. Lord willing, the precepts was edifying. Lord willing, it taps into a more positive outlook and the strengths that really come with submission. It's not about this worldly mentality that comes with that word. It actually has a very spiritual and mighty strength that goes to it. So Lord willing, Lord willing is edifying. And I'm gonna give a strong call out to Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Tawada, Kwam Yasharala, Shalom.